Americans are asking, who attacked our country? The evidence we have gathered all points to a collection of loosely affiliated terrorist organizations known as Al-Qaeda.
Maybe you already know that the U.S. government is secretly supporting the very terrorists that it claims to be fighting against. But just in case you didn't, it's officially been declassified. This now declassified document officially admits it. It comes from August 12, 2012, about exactly a month before the attacks on the Benghazi embassy.
What difference at this point does it make?
And in it, the Defense Intelligence Agency gives a Department of Defense information report on Iraq as well as on Syria. And after the redacted portions, it discusses the general situation, in which it says the Salafists, the Muslim Brotherhood, and Al-Qaeda Iraq, shown here as AQI, are the major forces driving the insurgency in Syria. Now, you've probably heard that the insurgency in Syria is made up of, quote, carefully vetted moderate rebels.
Well, first of all, I vetted a number of them because I know them.
But this document, now declassified, proves otherwise. And it also says in item C that the West, which would include the United States, as well as the Gulf countries, which would include Saudi Arabia and Turkey, all support the opposition, while Russia, China, and Iran, of course, support the Assad regime. And this same document admits on page 5 that these events are leading to a proxy war, which today is very obvious given all the moves by Putin and the response by the United States.
The issue here that I'm concerned with, and that is the fact that the U.S. and the CIA are working to overthrow the Syrian government of Assad. This puts us in a position of a possible direct head-to-head conflict with Russia as long as the U.S. and CIA continue down this path.
But here it is in 2012, and they knew that it was headed towards a proxy war that would involve Russia, China, and Iran. And moreover, it says here that as the situation threatens to unravel, that there's the possibility of establishing a declared or undeclared Salafist principality in eastern Syria, and that this is exactly what the supporting powers to the opposition want in order to isolate the Syrian regime. It also admits that the deterioration of this situation will have consequences for Iraq, where U.S. troops fought for such a long time.
When I called our troops into action, I did so with complete confidence in their courage and skill. And tonight, thanks to them, we are winning the war on terror.
It says, quote, that it would create the ideal atmosphere for Al-Qaeda Iraq to return to its old pockets and will provide a renewed momentum under the presumption of unifying the jihad among Sunni Iraq and Syria. It also says that the ISI could declare an Islamic State through its union with other terrorist organizations in Iraq and Syria. And again, this is, quote, exactly what the supporting powers want. While on the surface, the Islamic State, better known as ISIS or ISIL, didn't even exist before the Benghazi attacks in Libya, it existed right here in this 2012 document where they clearly show that their support for these terrorist groups in Syria and Iraq are probably going to lead to this Islamic State. This is 2012. Look who your enemy is today.
My answer is simple. I will not put American boots on the ground in Syria.
The core of our military strategy inside of Syria is to build up the capacity of local forces to take the fight to ISIL on the ground in their own country.
And then, of course, there's what they don't say. So you thought the Iraq War was over? Probably not, but I guess we'll never know since the following is all redacted. Now, there were many indicators that the United States was actually supporting Al-Qaeda and other terrorists and basically just trying to break it and buy it in the Middle East. But this was actually published in the New York Times back in 2013 before this document was declassified. And they talk about really a point that was discussed frequently during the Bush administration, splitting up Iraq into 3 or more pieces as well as other parts of the Middle East. And this article on how 5 countries could become 14 shows how there could be a total remapping of the Arab world in the wake of Libya, Syria, Iraq, and whatever countries come after that. But we all know that war with Iran is pretty much in the cards at some point.
But at the end of the day, if we don't get it done the way the administration's working on it now, which I totally agree with, then we ought to take them out.
Secretary Clinton.
Well, we're working hard. We're working hard.
But very interesting that they have marked Sunnistan, a Sunni state, pretty much another way of saying an Islamic state, because the ISIS Islamic State they're talking about is based on Sunnis opposing the Shia. And again, the West and the Gulf states are admittedly supporting this. And so is Turkey, so they can lead to the creation of Kurdistan and kick the Kurds out of Turkey and give the Kurds their own little tiny state. Of course, there's a state for the Alawites, and the Shiites will be pushed way over here next to Iran, probably precipitating further conflict. This is divide and conquer in action. None of this has anything to do with the official reasons we were told we should fight after 9/11.
Do you remember what it was like right after September the 11th around here?
Against Saddam Hussein.
One of the hardest parts of my job is to connect Iraq to the war on terror.
Against Gaddafi.
We came, we saw, he died.
Against Assad.
I have indicated repeatedly that President al-Assad has lost legitimacy, that he needs to step down.
Or anyone else. And yet, how long has this really been the plan? Do you really think that Obama didn't know?
With the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces.
Do you really think that John McCain, pictured with the moderate terrorists, didn't know?
I know these people. I'm in contact with them all the time. The meeting in the White House over 2 years ago, everyone in the National Security Team recommended arming ISIS.
Do you really think Hillary didn't know?
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans?
You really think Bush didn't know?
Our war on terror begins with Al-Qaeda, but it does not end there.
Today, ISIS is supposedly the biggest threat that we face, and an attack on America is imminent. Ask yourself, what would the people of this country really do if they really knew the truth about the brazen Orwellian lies that this government tells us?
You now have terrorist attacks being committed by terrorists funded, armed and trained by Western intelligence agencies. There is no such thing as ISIS. ISIS is a creation of the United States.
We were never at war with East Asia. We were always at war with East Asia. Al-Qaeda is the enemy when we tell you, and they're our ally when we want them to be.
You will not escape the justice of this nation in the face of terror. Terrorists, and axis of evil. The war on terror. Our nation is at war.
This nation is sick and tired of war. My answer is simple. American boots on the ground in Syria. America will lead a broad coalition. We will expand our efforts beyond protecting our own people. Slippery slope to another war. Terrorists
To simply march into al-Raqqa in Syria and clean the whole place out.
ISIS is the enemy, but we're also supporting them at the same time, simultaneously.
And all who gave their lives for freedom. Our cause is just.
It's truly difficult to imagine a more insidious and disgusting deception against the American people.